Lockdowns at schools are always nerve-wracking situations. But what if there's something far more sinister lurking beneath the surface? Today, we'll delve into 3 bone-chilling stories that will make you question the safety of even the most familiar places. Brace yourselves, because these true accounts are not for the faint of heart. Story 1. The Trespasser's Pursuit. It was just another typical day in my sophomore year of high school. Classes had ended, and like usual, I was hanging out with my friends in the hallway by our lockers when the first warning bell rang. While some kids dispersed to their final class, a few of us lingered behind. That's when the real chaos began. An announcement blared over the intercom, ordering a full lockdown. Students were instructed to report to their next class immediately as teachers locked the doors and turned off lights. Amid the pandemonium, my friend Jake suggested we make a run for it since we only had 1 period left. Caught up in the moment, I agreed, but by the time I reached the parking lot, Jake and the others were gone. As I desperately searched, I noticed a suspicious man exiting the school, clearly the reason behind the lockdown. Instinctively, I hid behind a nearby tree, but his footsteps drew perilously closer. With my heart pounding, I bolted into the adjacent woods, praying he wouldn't follow. Crouched amid the foliage, I held my breath as I heard his heavy footfalls in the grass just outside the tree line. The suspense was suffocating. I couldn't stay put any longer, so I took off deeper into the woods, running until my lungs burned. Finally, I reached the edge and made a break for the sidewalk, sprinting until I found refuge at a nearby gas station. The clerk, sensing my distress, let me call my mom while I caught my breath, still shaken from the harrowing chase. It turned out the trespasser was a distraught father, intoxicated and trying to forcibly reunite with his estranged daughter at the school. While his intentions were misguided, the terror I felt that day was all too real, a haunting reminder that danger can lurk where you least expect it. Story 2. The Intruder's Persistence. It started like any other day, but by lunchtime, a strange unease had settled over me. Throughout the morning, I had noticed an odd, disheveled man wandering the hallways, a figure that clearly didn't belong. At first, I brushed it off, assuming he was a substitute teacher or maintenance worker, but his presence felt increasingly out of place. My suspicions were confirmed during my last class when the lockdown was announced. As we huddled in the darkened room, I couldn't shake the memory of the strange man I had seen multiple times that day, his furtive movements now taking on a more sinister connotation. It wasn't until after the lockdown ended that the truth came to light. The man had been the reason for the entire ordeal. Somehow, he had managed to slip into the school undetected that morning and wander the halls unchallenged for hours before someone finally noticed his suspicious behavior during the final period. Despite the lockdown and police intervention, the intruder had still managed to escape through an open window, leaving me shaken and questioning how someone could infiltrate a school so easily, roaming the hallways with impunity until the very last moment. The thought of him prowling the halls, potentially within feet of me and my classmates, still sends chills down my spine. It was a harsh reminder that even the places we consider safe havens can be violated, and danger can lurk in the most unlikely of places. Story 3. The Stranger's Deception. Being the new kid at school was daunting enough, but my first day took a truly terrifying turn. It was only my second week, and I was still getting used to the sprawling hallways and layout of my new high school. After finishing my first class, I found myself hopelessly lost, frantically searching for my next classroom as the final bell rang. Panic set in as the hallways cleared, leaving me utterly alone. That's when the lockdown announcement echoed through the empty corridors. I was trapped, a sitting duck in the deserted halls during an emergency situation. In my frantic state, I didn't notice the man approaching until he was right in front of me. A stranger, but one with a disarmingly warm demeanor. He claimed to be a staff member and offered to escort me to his classroom since I was too lost to find my own during the lockdown. Desperate and relieved to have found an ally, I foolishly followed him without a second thought. But as we neared my actual classroom, alarms started going off in my mind. When I moved to enter, the man discouraged me, insisting I continue on to his room instead. Perhaps it was a fleeting glimpse of the classroom number or just my gut instinct, but something made me ignore his protests. I knocked firmly on the door until my bewildered teacher appeared, quickly ushering me inside to safety. It wasn't until later that day that the horrifying truth came to light. The man who had so warmly led me through the halls in my moment of panic was no staff member at all. He was an intruder, arrested for trespassing on campus with unknown intentions. The thought of where he could have taken me in those deserted halls still haunts my nightmares. I had narrowly escaped becoming a tragic statistic, all because I trusted the wrong person during a moment of vulnerability. Story 4: The Phantom Intruder. It was a crisp autumn afternoon when our high school's annual pep rally was abruptly interrupted by the blaring of the lockdown alarm. At first, many of us thought it was just a drill, but the urgency in our principal's voice over the intercom told us otherwise. As we huddled in the darkened gymnasium, whispers began to circulate about a masked intruder spotted near the science wing. Hours ticked by, and the initial excitement gave way to genuine fear. As night fell, the power suddenly cut out, plunging us into total darkness. Panicked whispers filled the air as hundreds of students tried to make sense of what was happening. That's when I heard it, a faint scratching sound coming from the air vent above me. Heart pounding, I nudged my friend Sarah and pointed upward. The scratching grew louder, accompanied by what sounded like labored breathing. Suddenly, the vent cover crashed to the floor, narrowly missing us. In the dim emergency lighting, we caught a glimpse of a pale, contorted face peering down at us from the vent shaft. Chaos erupted as students scrambled away screaming. In the commotion, I lost sight of Sarah. As I frantically searched for her, I felt a cold, clammy hand grasp my ankle. Looking down, I saw a figure emerging from beneath the bleachers, its face obscured by a grotesque mask. Just as I was about to scream, the gymnasium doors burst open. Police officers swarmed in, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The masked figure released my ankle and vanished into the shadows. When the lights finally came back on, there was no trace of the intruder, in the vents or under the bleachers. In the days that followed, rumors swirled about who or what had infiltrated our school. Some claimed it was an escaped mental patient. Others insisted it was a vengeful former student. But perhaps the most chilling theory came from the school's longtime janitor, who swore that the building was haunted by the spirits of students who had died on campus years ago. To this day, I can't shake the memory of that pale face in the vent, or the icy grip on my ankle. A reminder that sometimes the most terrifying threats are the ones we can't explain. Story number 5: The Doppelganger Dilemma. When the lockdown alarm sounded during my junior year, I calmly entered the nearest classroom. To my surprise, my best friend Lily was already there, despite having a different class this period. As I approached, I noticed something off. Lily's posture was rigid, her eyes unfocused. When I touched her shoulder, she turned with a blank expression and said in a monotone, "Hello, Emma. Isn't it a lovely day for a lockdown?" Unnerved, I backed away, only to bump into someone. I spun around to find another Lily? This one looked normal. Warm smile, bright eyes, concerned expression. "Emma, are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost," she said. My mind reeled as I looked between the two identical Lilies. Suddenly, the lights went out. In the darkness, I heard movement and a scream. When emergency lights came on, both Lilies had vanished. The lockdown lasted for hours. When it ended, I found Lily in the cafeteria, acting normally. She insisted she'd been in her assigned classroom the whole time. In the following weeks, other students reported similar experiences, seeing doubles of friends or encountering emotionless versions of people they knew. These incidents always happened during lockdowns and ended with unexplained disappearances. Theories ranged from mass hysteria to government experiments, but no explanation was ever given. To this day, I'm haunted by the memory of those two Lilies and the unsettling questions it raises. Story number 6: The Time Loop Terror. It started as a routine lockdown drill on a mundane Tuesday morning. We all knew the procedure: file quietly into the nearest room, lock the doors, turn off the lights, and wait for the all clear. But as I settled into my hiding spot behind the teacher's desk, something felt off. The principal's voice crackled over the intercom. "This is not a drill. An unknown threat has been detected within the school premises. Remain in lockdown until further notice." Panic set in as minutes stretched into hours. Just as the tension became unbearable, the all-clear signal finally sounded. We emerged, shaken but relieved. As I walked to my next class, I heard the principal's voice again. To my horror, he was repeating the exact same lockdown announcement. I froze as students around me once again rushed to hide. This time, I paid closer attention. Everything was exactly the same as before. The same students, the same reactions, even the same whispered conversations. When the all clear came, I was the only one who realized we'd been through this before. The cycle repeated endlessly. Each time I tried desperately to convince others that we were stuck in a time loop, but no one believed me. On what felt like the 100th iteration, I ventured into the empty hallways. Turning a corner, I faced a swirling mass of shadows that bent reality around it. The entity revealed it had trapped our school in a time loop to feed off our fear. It offered me a choice: join it and escape, or remain trapped forever. I refused and pleaded for my school's release. Surprisingly, the entity seemed impressed by my selflessness. With a sound like reality tearing, the shadow dissipated, and I found myself back in class, the drill just beginning. No one else remembers the time loop. But on quiet days, I swear I can still hear that first announcement echoing in the halls. A reminder of the day I faced an otherworldly terror and chose to stand by my friends. These chilling tales serve as a reminder that even the most familiar places can harbor unexpected dangers. While lockdowns are meant to protect us, they can also create opportunities for those with sinister intentions. Stay vigilant, trust your instincts, and always prioritize your safety. If you enjoyed these haunting tales, smash that subscribe button and leave a thumbs up for more creepy stories.